Pass over to Jackie first because we haven't heard from you at all, Jackie, up to this point. Just to remind people, Jackie is a member of the Family Support Network. So, Jackie, before you talk about your own personal circumstances, maybe just explain to us what does the network do and where do you exist?
The network exists throughout Ireland, but I would work within the North East region, which covers Cavan, Mullen, Louth and Meath and Fermanagh.
Okay, and what do you do? What are you involved with them for?
We're peer-led family support where we meet together with a common issue, and it is we either have a child or someone within the family who has drug and alcohol addiction.
Okay, do you want to tell us about your own story?
My own story is we're a very ordinary family. I grew up in we lived in a very small village outside Enniskillen. I didn't realise drugs were about. To me, drugs were in Dublin and Belfast. And I have 4 children. A girl and 3 boys. And one of my sons was very much an outdoor person, very much into, wasn't into TV or anything like that. He loved being out in the open and playing outside. And I would have been a Cub Scout leader and very involved within the local community and done all the things the book says to do to bring your kids up and they'll go on a good pathway. But unfortunately, as I can say today, my son fell into addiction. It started off with experimentation with alcohol and then with drugs. And for 10 years our family life was upside down. I didn't know where to turn to at the beginning. I wanted to fix my child, because if your child is sick you take it to the doctor tells you what to do, take it home and you put him on the pathway to recovery. But I learned in a very slow process and a very frustrating process that I couldn't fix my son. And I think Oisin said it earlier that he had to reach the conclusion himself that he had a problem. For years he used to tell people I was the problem because I was knocking all these doors. I went and visited the addiction counsellors. They all knew me by name. Nobody knew my son. And I came across the family support and I started getting help for myself. And I would say today I'm also in recovery because I had to learn to parent a completely different way. I had to put in tough love, which is what the addiction counsellors had told me. You need to do tough love, but they didn't explain to me how to do that. And it just went against my natural instincts as a mother to say no to my child, to watch him suffer. And he was telling me he was young, he was enjoying life, and he was just doing what every other young person does and was doing, and that was to take drugs and alcohol.
Can I ask what age he was?
He actually started, unbeknownst to myself, when he was 13. But by the time he was 15, 16, things were drastically wrong. And I knew in my gut things were wrong. But even when I went to the addiction counsellors and to the GP and that, they really felt I was an overprotective mother. But I knew in my gut this wasn't right. And by the time my son was 17, I was getting up to go out to work at 7 o'clock in the morning. As any other house, it's a busy house in the mornings. Everybody's trying to get breakfast and get out the door to work and school. And my son was standing pouring a bottle of wine down his throat. And I knew he wasn't thirsty. If he was thirsty, he was watering the tap. And I remember going, and this counsellor said to me, how can you say that about your son? He's at that stage I started to say he was an alcoholic. And he says, maybe you need counselling for yourself. And I said, well, maybe I do, And but it was by pure chance that I came across family support, and I started to learn about addiction because I didn't know anything about addiction. People say about pressure, and as parents we do have a big influence on our children's lives when they're small. But in our family home, we never actually had alcohol. It wasn't part of our family. life, and apart from going to a wedding or something like that, you know, and they were saying about the Christmas and all there. When my kids were christened, we went home and we had tea and sandwiches and just the family, and that was the kind of family we were. But whenever I started to learn, we took part in research with Dr. Karen Duggan back in 2007, I think it was, and she came up with the 7 stages that a family go through. And the first stage is the unknowing, the ignorance and the confusion and the denial. Because it is denial, you know, because we don't know as parents. And then was coping alone, and that the isolation and the loneliness as a family, as a mother, was crippling. Because you feel, is it something you've done wrong as a parent? You know, was I a bad mother? Did I do something that I shouldn't have done, that my child has ended up like this? And then the third one was desperately seeking support. And I can honestly say that, and some of the addiction counsellors, when I meet them today, they just smile and say hello and ask how things is going. But I really did knock doors. But it took me 18 months before I discovered that there was a family support group going, and that I was able to go there and talk with people who knew what I was feeling and knew how it was. The chaos and the boundaries within our home, you know, were totally put away whenever addiction came in, because I became as manic as my son when he was eating drink or needing drugs, and trying to find a fix for the problem. And then I went to supported learning, was number 4 in the 7 stages, and then number 5, and it's the one that I love. When I got the education around addiction and the process of addiction, was reclaiming my family home. And as parents, we went through, I feel in society today, we went through a stage where we were nearly felt as parents it wasn't okay to say no to our kids, because kids, everybody wanted to give and give and give, and everybody wanted to be kind of seen to be, you know, well, if we give this to our children, you know, it's showing how much we love them and how much, you know, and keeping up with the Joneses became a normal way of life. And whenever addiction comes in, it thrives within that. It thrives with secrecy, and it thrives with the denial, and it also thrives with the emotional blackmail. And it took me, I would say, I was going into family support meetings for about 4 months before I could say no to my son. And it's a very, very small word, it's a very simple word, but I was terrified to use that word to my son because I didn't know what the consequences was going to be. And whenever I learned that, I'm putting back the boundaries. And it was through the peer support that I learned that it was okay to do that. It was okay to say no. It's okay to have a boundary there and to stick to that boundary. Because, as I say, with all the chaos that came with the addiction, the boundaries in our home became totally askew. You know, we were all over the place. I didn't know what was right anymore, and I didn't know what was wrong. And number 6 in the 7 stage was the supported recovery. It's the aspiration of all families that their drug-using child would abandon the use of drugs, and many did, even after years of difficulty. And all cases where families was involved in supporting the recovery of the user, that the outcome was much more rewarding, and because addiction is a family illness, it doesn't just affect the person who is using the alcohol or has the addiction, and the effect on the family is mighty, you know. And people would say, and looking maybe in their locality and say, well, there's a problem family. But I used to say we were not a problem family, but we were a family with a problem in it. And whenever that problem is addressed by the family and by the community around them, it makes such a change. And I learned that actually in Coomere.